For the past 11 years, I have been tracking food regulations across 3 continents and documenting every single change that impacts what ends up in your grocery cart. While everyone is panicking about tariffs and inflation, I have been quietly watching something way bigger unfold. Starting April 2026, 18 common grocery items are getting hit with new federal restrictions that will either pull them off shelves entirely or change their formulas so drastically they won't be the same product. Number 12 is sitting at your local warehouse store right now for under $7. And once these laws kick in, the original version disappears forever. The problem is that when everyone reads the same news headlines and rushes to buy the same 5 things, those are exactly what vanish first. Back in 2020, I watched people fight over toilet paper while restaurant-grade supplies sat untouched on commercial supplier websites. Here's what nobody is talking about. If you are smart, you are not stocking what gets banned. You are stocking what gets reformulated before anyone notices the difference. And if you have not hit subscribe yet, do it now, because this information is not showing up in your regular news feed. Let me start with the one that shocked me most. Number 1 is red dye number 3. This is not just some obscure chemical. This is in your kids' fruit snacks, your maraschino cherries, your candy corn, your cake icing. The FDA just announced a full ban effective April 2026 after California forced their hand. Once this hits, every single product using it has to reformulate or disappear. Now here's the thing nobody is telling you. The replacement dyes do not work the same way. I have tested reformulated European candies that had to switch years ago. The color fades within 6 months on the shelf. The taste changes slightly because different dyes interact with acidic ingredients differently. If you have kids who are picky eaters, if you use certain cake decorating products, if you rely on specific candy brands for holiday traditions, you want the original formula. Right now you can walk into any grocery store and buy Swiss Miss Cocoa Mix, Kool-Aid in certain flavors, Duncan Hines frosting cans, all with Red 3. After April, these exact products will taste and look different. I am not saying hoard. I am saying buy a reasonable 12-month supply of anything you actually use. A case of Swiss Miss costs $18 and lasts my household 8 months. Meanwhile, preppers are spending hundreds on freeze-dried meals that taste like cardboard. The reformulated versions will be legal and safe, but they will not be the same. And when your 6-year-old refuses to eat the new version, you'll understand why I am telling you this now. Look, these regulations are hitting faster than most families can track. I have done the homework for you and put together a free food ban survival guide that lists the exact 18 items, which brands still use the old formulas, and where to find them at regular prices. It can save you from paying panic buy markups later and cost you nothing today. You can grab it free at the link in the description so you can stop guessing and start acting. Number 2 sounds boring, but it is absolute gold. Potassium bromate. This is a dough conditioner that makes bread fluffier and rise faster. It is already banned in Europe and Canada. Now the US is finally following in April 2026. Here's what nobody mentions. This is in almost every commercial burger bun, hot dog bun, and sandwich roll at restaurants. It is also in specific brands of bread flour that professional bakers and serious home bakers rely on. King Arthur used to use it. Some regional mills still do. Once this ban hits, bread texture changes. I am not being dramatic. I tested this myself last year by comparing U.S. burger buns to Canadian ones. The Canadian versions, which had to reformulate years ago, are denser. They get soggy faster with condiments. If you do serious baking, if you make your own hamburger buns, if you run a small food business, you need to stock the flour that still contains this before April. A 50-pound bag of high-gluten bread flour with potassium bromate costs around $40 from a restaurant supply store and lasts me 14 months in a sealed food-grade bucket with an oxygen absorber. That same amount of reformulated flour after April will technically work, but your dinner rolls will not have the same texture your family is used to. And here's the kicker. Most preppers have never even heard of this chemical, which means right now, this flour is fully stocked everywhere. Next spring, it will not matter. Number 3 is going to surprise you. Brominated vegetable oil, or BVO. This is the ingredient that keeps citrus flavoring from separating in drinks. It is in original Gatorade formulas, certain Mountain Dew products, some Powerade flavors, and a bunch of off-brand sports drinks. The ban starts April 2026. Now, before you say you do not drink that stuff, hear me out. If you have kids playing sports, if you work outdoors in summer heat, if you keep electrolyte drinks for emergencies, the replacement formulas are not going to mix the same way. I opened a reformulated European version of a popular citrus sports drink last summer during a heat wave. The flavor oil was floating at the top. I had to shake it every single time. The original BVO version stayed mixed for the entire shelf life. A 24-pack of Gatorade Orange costs about $18 at warehouse stores right now. It has a 2-year shelf life if you keep it in a cool, dark space. After April, you're dealing with new formulas that separate, taste slightly different, and honestly just feel cheaper. Most people are not paying attention to ingredient lists on drinks. You are now ahead of 95% of consumers. Number 4 is titanium dioxide. This is a whitening agent in everything from powdered donuts to coffee creamer to ranch dressing to chewing gum. The EU already banned it in food back in 2022. The US is finally catching up in April 2026. Here's the insight nobody is sharing. Titanium dioxide does not just make things whiter, it also changes texture and mouthfeel. I compared European Coffee Mate, which had to reformulate years ago, to the US version. The European one is slightly more watery and does not blend as smoothly into hot coffee. If you are a coffee creamer person, if you use powdered ranch dressing mix for dips, if your family goes to those little powdered donut packs, you want the original versions. A big canister coffee made original powdered creamer costs about $8 and lasts my household 4 months. After April, the replacements will still lighten your coffee, but the consistency will be off. Same thing with store-brand ranch dip mixes. The reformulated versions use alternative whiteners like calcium carbonate, which does not dissolve the same way. You end up with gritty dip. I felt like an idiot for not stocking up on European products before their ban hit, because 6 months later the reformulated versions were everywhere and I could not find the originals. Do not make my mistake. Number 5 is one I use in my kitchen every single week. Propylparaben. This is a preservative used in tortillas, some packaged baked goods, and certain spice blends. It is getting restricted starting April 2026 due to endocrine concerns. Now here's what makes this tricky. It is mostly in products with longer shelf lives. Mission flour tortillas, certain flatbreads, some McCormick spice mixes. Once this gets pulled, manufacturers have to either shorten the shelf life dramatically or use different preservatives that change flavor. I tested this last year when a local tortilla brand reformulated early. The new version molds within 5 days of opening. The old version with propylparaben lasted 3 weeks in my fridge. If you go through tortillas regularly, if you rely on them for quick meals, you want to stock the current formula. A pack of 20 burrito size tortillas cost about $4. You can freeze them, and they last 8 months. After April, you're either dealing with shorter shelf life or a different taste profile. Most people will not connect the dots when their tortillas start molding faster. You will know exactly why. Number 6 is azotic carbonamide, or EDTA. This is another dough conditioner, mostly in mass-produced white bread, rolls, and bagels. Same deal as potassium bromate. It makes dough stretchier and easier to work with industrially. It is already banned in Australia and Europe. The U.S. ban starts April 2026. Here's the real story. I have a friend who worked in industrial bakeries for 20 years. He told me flat out that when they had to remove EDTA for export products, the dough became harder to handle and the final texture was noticeably denser. If you buy Sara Lee, Wonder Bread, Thomas's English Muffins, or bagels from grocery store bakery sections, there's a decent chance EDTA is in there. Check your labels right now. A loaf of white bread costs $2. It freezes perfectly for up to 6 months. After April, the texture will be different enough that kids will notice. And if your family is anything like mine, that difference matters when you are trying to get them to eat lunch before school. Stock a reasonable amount of what you actually use. Do not go crazy. But do not ignore this. Number 7 is the one sitting at your local Asian market right now for under $3. certain preservatives in imported candies and snacks, specifically those using coal tar dyes and specific stabilizers that do not meet new FDA import rules starting April 2026. This impacts Japanese Kit Kats, certain Korean gummy candies, specific Pocky flavors, and a bunch of imported cookies that use ingredients legal overseas but getting restricted here. Here's what nobody talks about. These are not getting banned because they are dangerous at the levels used. They are getting restricted because of paperwork and regulatory alignment. If you have kids who love these specific imported treats, if you rely on them for gifts or special occasions, now is the time. A box of assorted Japanese Kit Kat flavors costs about $12 online or at H-Mart. They have a 1-year shelf life. After April, importers will either reformulate for the U.S. market, which changes the flavor, or they will stop importing entirely. Either way, the original versions you're used to will not be available. I have been buying these for years, and the difference between Japanese formulas and U.S. reformulations is night and day. The Japanese versions use real matcha powder and specific fruit extracts. The reformulated versions use flavor approximations. If this matters to you, act now. Number 8 is one most people do not even know is in their food: propyl gallate. This is an antioxidant preservative mostly in foods with fats and oils, like microwave popcorn, certain beef jerky brands, some dry soup mixes, and specific seasoning blends. It prevents rancidity. It is getting pulled April 2026 after mounting pressure from health advocacy groups. Here's the catch. The replacement preservatives are not as effective. I opened a bag of reformulated microwave popcorn 6 months ago that had switched to mixed tocopherols instead. It tasted stale even though it was within the best by date. Propyl gallate works better at stopping oxidation. If you are a popcorn person, if you stock beef jerky for hiking or emergencies, check your labels. Brands like Orville Redenbacher's butter flavors and certain Jack Link's jerky styles still use it. A bulk box of microwave popcorn costs about $15 and lasts my household a year. After April, you are dealing with shorter effective shelf life and flavor degradation. Most people will not realize why their popcorn tastes off. You will. Number 9 is calcium disodium EDTA. This is a chelating agent that prevents discoloration and rancidity in canned goods, bottled dressings, mayo, and some pickle products. It is mostly in shelf-stable items. The new restriction starting April 2026 will not ban it outright, but will lower the allowable limits, which forces reformulations. Here's what happened when a major mayo brand reformulated early last year in test markets. The mayo turned slightly yellow within 3 months production instead of staying white. It still tasted fine, but visually it looked off, which tanked consumer trust. If you use a lot of mayo, if you rely on bottled salad dressings for meal prep, if you keep canned vegetables as backups, check the labels. Brands still using the full allowable amount will have better color stability. A big jar of Hellmann's mayo costs about $6 and lasts 8 months in my pantry unopened. After April, the reformulated versions will still be safe, but they will not look as appealing on the shelf. This matters more than you think when you're trying to feed a family that eats with their eyes first. Number 10 is going to sound niche, but it is huge if you bake. Aluminum-based leavening agents in specific baking powder brands. Some formulations of baking powder use sodium aluminum sulfate or aluminum phosphate to control the release of gas during baking. New restrictions starting April 2026 will push manufacturers toward aluminum-free formulas across the board. Here's the thing. Aluminum-based baking powders react differently than aluminum-free versions. They create a finer crumb structure in cakes and a crisper texture in certain cookies. I tested this side by side last month. Same recipe. One batch with Clabberger original formula, one batch with an aluminum-free version. The aluminum-free version produced a denser cake that did not rise as evenly. If you are serious about baking, you care about this. A canister of baking powder costs about $4 and lasts me over a year, is stored in an airtight container. After April, the formulas will change and your recipes will not turn out exactly the same. Professional bakers already know this. Home bakers are about to learn the hard way. Number 11 is partially hydrogenated oils, or PHOs. Technically, these have been getting phased out since 2018, but there are still a ton of products with extended compliance deadlines that run through April 2026. This includes certain store-brand crackers, some microwave popcorn, specific frosting brands, and a bunch of industrial baking mixes. If the label says partially hydrogenated anything, it is gone soon. Here's the insider fact. The replacements, usually palm oil or intra-esterified fats, change the texture and shelf life. I compared Ritz crackers before and after reformulation. The new ones go stale faster once you open the box. The old formula with PHO stayed crisp for weeks. If you have favorite crackers, cookies, or baking mixes, check the ingredient list. If it still says partially hydrogenated oil, that is the old formula. Stock what you actually eat. A box of crackers costs about $4. It lasts 6 months unopened. After April, you are dealing with different fats that do not preserve texture as long. This is not a health debate. This is about knowing your food is going to be different and planning accordingly. Number 12 is the one I mentioned up top. Specific formulations of food-grade mineral oil used as a coating on certain dried fruits, some candies, and in specific baking release sprays. New purity standards starting April 2026 will restrict which grades can be used in food. This impacts certain prunes, dates, dried apricots that use mineral oil to keep them from clumping, and some commercial baking sprays used in professional kitchens. Here's what nobody is saying. The replacement coatings do not work as well. I bought reformulated dried apricots from a brand that switched early. They clumped together into a solid brick within 2 months. The mineral oil version stays separate and pliable for over a year. If you use dried fruit for baking, snacking, or emergency food, check the labels now. A 2-pound bag of dried apricots costs about $7 at Costco. It lasts indefinitely if stored in a sealed container. After April, you are dealing with inferior coatings that reduce shelf life and usability. Most people will not connect the dots. You are now in the small group that does. Number 13 is propylene glycol in specific food applications. This is a solvent and stabilizer mostly in flavorings, some cake mixes, certain frostings, and a bunch of drink flavorings. It is not getting banned outright, but allowable levels are dropping significantly starting April 2026. Here's the real impact. Lower levels mean flavors do not distribute as evenly in mixes. I tested a reformulated cake mix that had reduced propylene glycol. The flavor was noticeably uneven, with some bites tasting stronger than others. If you bake regularly, if you use box mixes as shortcuts, if you keep flavored drink mixes for kids, you want the current formulas. A box of Betty Crocker cake. Mix costs about $2. You can stock a dozen boxes for under $25, and they last 18 months. After April, the new formulas will still work, but the consistency will be off. This is one of those changes that flies under the radar until you actually use the product and realize something is different. Number 14 is Carrageenan in certain dairy and non-dairy products. This is a seaweed-derived thickener in chocolate milk, some ice creams, almond milk, coffee creamers, and a bunch of dairy-based desserts. New restrictions starting April 2026 will limit the types of Carrageenan allowed, which forces reformulations. Here's the story. I have been tracking Carrageenan reformulations in Europe for 3 years. When brands switched to alternative thickeners like gel-on gum or locust bean gum, the mouthfeel changed. Chocolate milk became thinner and separated faster. Ice cream developed ice crystals more quickly. If you have favorite brands of chocolate milk, specific coffee creamers, or particular ice cream flavors, check the labels now. If Carrageenan is listed, that is the original formula. A half gallon of Promised Land chocolate milk costs about $6 and lasts 2 weeks in my fridge. After April, the reformulated versions will still be drinkable, but the texture will not be the same. This matters if you have picky kids or if you are particular about your coffee creamer consistency. Number 15 is tertiary butyl hydroquin, or TBHQ. This is an antioxidant preservative in crackers, some cereals, certain fried snack foods, and a bunch of packaged baked goods. It prevents oils from going rancid. New allowable limits starting April 2026 will force reduced levels or complete reformulations. Here's the catch. Lower levels mean shorter shelf life for product high in fats. I compared cheese its before and after a test market reformulation. The new version tasted noticeably stale after just 3 weeks of opening the box. The original formula, with full TBHQ levels, stayed fresh for months. If you keep crackers, certain cereals, or snack foods as pantry staples, check your labels. Brands still using TBHQ at current levels will have better shelf stability. A box of crackers costs about $5. Stock what you actually eat, not what you think you should eat. After April, you will be dealing with products that go stale faster, which means more waste and more frequent shopping trips. Number 16 is specific artificial butter flavorings that contain diacetyl. This is mostly in microwave popcorn, some buttery crackers, certain cake mixes, and a bunch of snack foods that have butter flavor but no actual butter. New workplace safety rules are forcing manufacturers to reformulate starting April 2026 because of concerns about factory workers inhaling diacetyl vapors. Here's the impact on consumers. The replacement butter flavorings do not taste the same. I have tested reformulated popcorn from brands that switched early. The butter flavor is flatter and slightly chemical tasting. If you are picky about microwave popcorn, if you rely on certain buttery crackers for snacks, check the labels now. Brands still using diacetyl-based flavorings are the original formulas. A bulk box of microwave popcorn costs about $12. After April, the flavor profile changes, and you will notice this is not a maybe. This is guaranteed. Number 17 is FD&C Yellow 5 and Yellow 6 in certain applications. These are not getting fully banned, but are facing new labeling requirements and usage restrictions starting April 2026. This impacts a huge range of products. Boxed mac and cheese, certain cereals, some candies, flavored chips, and a bunch of brightly colored snack foods. Here's what nobody is talking about. The restrictions will push some manufacturers to reformulate entirely rather than deal with the new labeling headaches. When Kraft reformulated mac and cheese in certain markets overseas, the color was noticeably duller, and the cheese powder did not mix as smoothly. If you have kids who are obsessed with certain snack foods, if you keep boxed mac and cheese as a quick meal, stock the original formulas now. A box of Kraft mac and cheese costs about $1. You can stock 20 boxes for under $25. After April, some brands will still use these dyes with new labels, but others will switch formulas entirely. The ones that switch will not taste or look the same. Number 18 is the one that hits home cooks hardest. Certain emulsifiers, including polysorbate 80 and carboxymethylcellulose, in specific food applications. These are in ice cream, some salad dressings, certain sauces, and a bunch of processed foods that need to stay smooth and not separate. New restrictions starting April 2026 will limit allowable levels. Here's the real-world impact. I tested reformulated ranch dressing that had reduced emulsifiers. It separated within a week of opening and never fully remixed even after shaking. The original formula stayed smooth for months. If you use a lot of salad dressings, if you keep ice cream in the freezer, if you rely on certain sauces for cooking, check your labels now. Brands still using these emulsifiers at full levels will have better stability. A bottle of Hidden Valley Ranch costs about $4 and lasts my family 3 weeks. After April, you are dealing with products that separate faster and have worse texture. Most people will blame themselves for not shaking it enough. You will know it is the reformulation. So while everyone else is scrambling in April trying to figure out why their favorite foods suddenly taste different, you now have the exact list of what is changing and why. This is not about hoarding. This is about informed shopping. You do not need to clear shelves. You just need to buy a reasonable amount of what your family actually uses before the formulas change. Drop a comment telling me which of these you are stocking up on first, because I am genuinely curious if I missed anything regional that is getting hit by these same laws. And next week, I am breaking down the 12 kitchen tools everyone swears by that are completely useless in a real power outage. Trust me, number 8 is in almost every prepper's kitchen right now, and it is basically expensive junk. You do not want to miss that one.